Daisy's here to lead us in the pledge. Ladies, would you like to step up and lead us?
The flag is right here.
Okay. Do you want to lead?
Come on.
All right, go ahead and start.
Go ahead.
Good job, ladies.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have no speakers tonight.
He's like,
No.
we're done.
And
The daisies are leaving.
Bye, girls.
Thank you.
That's the best part of the meeting right there.
I know. Can I go too?
Here, okay, I'm told that
We're
the
leaving
mayor.
too.
I'm told the mayor has a presentation for us.
Plenty of seats up front now.
No waiting.
We want to reconfigure? This will be a little bit. Very good.
As the mayor of Mount Airy, I constantly witness numerous people doing amazing things in our community. This volunteer spirit is one of the reasons Mount Airy is such a great place to live, and our taxes are also low. As the mayor, nothing gives me more joy than recognizing citizens who perform selflessly to make our town an even better place to live. What I've come to notice is there are some individuals in this town who work extremely hard on projects that are not always front page news. But they are very significant. They require enormous amounts of time and dedication to accomplish these tasks. And those volunteers do these projects year after year with no expectation of recognition, and frequently they don't get that recognition. But they do it anyway because they love the community. I've decided to change that a little bit tonight. The staff has helped me create a new Mount Airy coin. We've only made 5 of them. Tonight, I am only awarding the first one. This will go to the lady who holds the annual bingo benefiting the Mount Airy Community Fund, Rails to Trails, and the Caboose. For 4 years, this bingo has allowed our community fund to offset costs to the town and provide funds toward other worthy projects and groups in the town of Mount Airy. For example, the community fund provided the fire department with $3,000 toward the rescue ATA vehicle. They paid for the deck attached to Mackenzie at the Caboose, again, saving taxpayer money. The bingo paid for the heating and air conditioning unit in the Caboose, as well as all the electrical work. That's really a lot of funding. Those bingos paid for the entire furnishings of the Caboose. On Rails to Trails work days, these bingos paid for pizzas, hot dogs, water, and soda. It's one of the ways we get so many people down there to volunteer. Over the 4 bingos, the community fund has shared proceeds with the Boy Scouts, the Linganore Key Club, the Rotary Club, and the South Carroll Band Boosters. As well, since the return of the Caboose, the person I'm talking about is Mary Hushauer. Mary has served as Mrs. Claus during the Santa Parade. She shuffles the kids in and out of the Caboose, making sure they get a sticker and a candy cane. And everybody that's a parent knows how important that really is. Mary is the person who creates the displays in the Caboose, including the Christmas Village that delights kids. And by the way, it delighted me too when I was in there, as they visit over the holidays. She serves on the town's beautification committee. It was instrumental in bringing in the standardized park entry signs. Did you all see those signs all around town? They're beautiful. And she was also instrumental in helping me create the Welcome to Mount Airy sign that was largely based on those initial signs that is now placed on 27. It gives us a befitting entry. When I need someone to serve on a task force or complete a project that is not in the limelight, Mary's only a phone call away, and I appreciate that. For her years of dedication and selfless service to Mount Airy, we've created not just for her, but for others, but she will be getting the first this coin. So I'm pleased to ask Mary Hushauer to join me at the podium at this time and to receive the first mayor's coin from the town of Mount Airy. Thank you. Mary, thank you. And we also have, who were these donated by?
Forever Flowers.
Forever Flowers also want to give you something a little bit more beautiful than ours. But we'll have these for you. Would you like to say any words, Mary?
Sure.
We're going to hold these there for you. Chief, do not take them.
What a great town. We moved here 17 years ago. And we've always been, we want to make things better. Leave it better than you find it. I've been fortunate that I've been able to help with an incredible group of volunteers with Rails to Trails and the Caboose and all the other organizations that I've reached out and been a part of. And this is a really special place. Thank you.
You're welcome. You know, in the interest of time, I left off all her work with the Girl Scouts and help with the Teen Center and things like that. There were more, but thank you, Mary. Well deserved. Coin number 1.
All right, up next we have approval of the council minutes, both the open and closed minutes for February 5th. I will move we accept them. I see Bob's hand up for a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? All right, police report. Chief?
Oh, sorry. Good evening. Chief Reitz with the Chief's Report. Start off with, we've attended several meetings and trainings during the month of February, approximately 5 different meetings and trainings. A little bit on the community outreach front. The Links of Chaladon Grill is hosting a restaurant week to benefit the Mount Airy Police Community Fund. And that is during the week, this week, March 5th through the 10th. They will be donating 10% of their food sales to the community fund, which is what we put back into the community for things such as National Night Out and Shop with the Cop program, so forth. Several soda events in Mount Airy. We handled a sex offense and also a motor vehicle theft that occurred at the Park and Ride during this month. Is two of the biggest cases I think that the town had. A monthly overdose summary. There was 3 heroin overdoses in town, one of which one of the officers administered naloxone, and then there was a second one where EMS administered naloxone. We handled 726 events and incidents over the month. In the traffic enforcement, we issued 11 citations, 41 warnings. We issued 8 repair orders. There was no DUI arrest for the month. There's 1 traffic arrest for driving while suspended, and total traffic stops. We had 52 total traffic stops. On the criminal enforcement during the month, we had 14 criminal arrests, and we issued 1 civil citation. That will be the chief's report. Does anybody have any questions?
Go ahead. I got one too.
Sorry, let me talk through this thing. We've gotten a lot of letters here recently about the Rails to Trails. Do you have any plan to enforce law to people are worried that the rail trail will not be, you won't have a police presence in there.
We certainly can have a police presence there, and we have officers out on foot all the time. I would imagine that's going to be one of the areas that we can patrol on foot, as well as at some point maybe we could implement a bicycle patrol that would be successful down there. But that's and forthcoming in the future, so forth. So the officers have to be specifically trained to be bike patrol officers. They just don't jump on a bike and ride. Believe it or not, there's a full course that they have to go through in training. We do have some officers, including myself, that's been bike patrol trained which is close to 25 years ago now. I assume I can still
Never
ride a bike,
forget, Chief.
but you never know.
It's like riding a bike.
No, but yeah, that's something that the officers do walk foot patrol downtown and the surrounding areas, and I can make sure that they also hit the rails, the trails, and so forth. And in the summer months, we could probably get a bicycle out there, you know, if we can implement a program such as that.
I was just curious because I wasn't aware of whether you had or hadn't, or
Yeah.
even thought about it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, we, during the Streets and Roads Commission meeting, ended up discussing, historically, there's been some speeding issues or traffic issues on Prospect Road, and the police, when they were coming up to speed back in October, said they would start looking at that. Can you give a brief update on what you've kind of done to
Well,
help minimize speeding?
Sure. We have hit that area pretty heavily. That's one of our target zones. If I was aware that you were going to ask that question, I could probably try to have some information on how many total stops we've had in that area. But I can tell you, we do focus a lot of patrols in that area, and we've been down there a good bit. I think we've slowed them down a good bit. And I've noticed that the citations have and the warnings have kind of dropped off in that area as well. So,
Good.
and if there's specific problems that people were having, we need them to call the police department so we can keep track of that and document it and send somebody out there and get a look at things and monitor the traffic flow and see how fast people are going, get an idea what times the violations are occurring and all that. So if we can get that information, we can make sure that the officers pay specific attention to those areas at those appropriate times.
Very good, thank you.
In your first report, I believe you issued 800-something warnings. That's a huge number.
Yeah,
but only issued like 4 or 5 actual citations. So that was one of the first areas I think you hit hard in October.
correct. Yes,
Yeah,
we were
they-
in that
They
area.
really slammed that area, and I think it was in October.
Yeah, we issued.
But it's been a problem for years. The Girl Scouts for that area, the Regals, I believe, created a sign that I borrowed. And it was made up by Girl Scouts to please slow down, to remind people their speed. And we can also get some traffic monitors up there, just because sometimes people don't realize how fast they're.
Right. I think there's been a couple signs, like radar signs down in that area as well. I've seen one posted down there that the town has put out as well.
That's a hot spot.
Right. And I think during the first month, we issued 155 warnings.
Okay.
And we issued.
800 sounded better.
Yeah.
May not have been accurate.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Mount Airy Volunteer Fire Company report. Welcome back again, Bruce.
Yes. Out of
Just, you just can't get out of this job, can you?
No, I'm actually doing, I think, more stuff now than when I was president. For the month of February, rescue calls, we had 120 in Carroll, 32 in Frederick, 5 in Howard, 1 in Montgomery for 158 calls. Fire calls, we had 9 in Carroll, 5 in Frederick, 1 in Howard, 1 in Montgomery for a total of 16. We like to see that as a small number. That's good. So that resulted in a total of 129 calls for service in Carroll, 37 in Frederick, 6 in Howard, and 2 in Montgomery for 174 responses during the month. We have a number of activities coming up this month. This coming Sunday, we're going to start our hopefully monthly barbecue chicken drive-through at the firehouse, not at the reception hall, but if you pull up to the firehouse at noontime, starting at noon, you can order a half barbecue chicken with 2 sides and a drink, and they'll just come out and give it to you. There'll be no stopping there at the station, just drive through, and you'll be able to pick that up and have something to have for Sunday dinner. So we'll see how that goes, starting, that'll always be on the second Sunday of every month. And so we're starting that this month. And then we have our usual Big Country Breakfast on the 18th with the Easter Bunny. And we are also participating in the Links to Chaladon Restaurant Week Challenge, if you will. And between us and the police department, whoever gets the most business gets an extra $100. So just remember that, you know, we're kindler, gentler. We don't have guns, and we don't give you tickets. So. We're there to help.
The chief gets equal time to
But
rebut.
we encourage you to go twice. You can have 2 meals, 1 week with the police department, and 1 week get your second meal with the fire department. Thank you.
Same question. Is there a plan that's been implemented by the fire company to handle rails to trails?
Well, that's one of the reasons we got the ATV. And now that Larry has cut down the big tree that was at the beginning from the Watkins Park, we should be able to get it on the trail. And so we do have that available. And that was one of our specific reasons for getting that vehicle.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, up next Next up, we have community concerns, citizen comments. This is a time when if anybody wants to address anything, they can stand on up and do it. Mr. Neal, I know you're here for the other presentation. There will be a question and answer session attached to that, so you may want to do it then. I'll leave it up to you.
I don't have a direct
Come on up.
response to the other presentation. I have an overall response.
Come on up. And just to let you know, the next thing on the agenda, I'm going to shift the agenda around so that maybe the people who are here for the TAP grant proposal can get out a little earlier, and the engineers who are here so they can get home a little sooner. We're going to move that up on the agenda, and that has a question and answer session attached to that presentation. Welcome, Mr. Neal.
Thank you. My name is Bill Neal. For those of you who do not know me, I'm the second generation of the Neal clan, if you want to put it that way, here at the Watersville Road, Neal's Farm Market. We also have our son here, Gene and I, and that's Jim. He's the third generation. And there was supposed to be some of the other kids coming along, but I don't see the fourth generation. But I will let you know, I got 4 great-grandsons, so anyhow, a little distant out. I really come here tonight to speak to the town council and the citizens, and for hear what I have to say, and also so you hear the same story at the same time that the council hears. And the subject being rails to trails east of Route 27 and Center Street. My position on behalf of the Neal family has been to maintain the rights of full ownership of private property that my father and mother, Roy and Margaret, bought in 1940. Also following that, in 1961, they bought other property. And all of that was from the B&O Railroad. The B&O Railroad, where the tennis courts are now, clear to the schools, was called a future industrial possibility. And the B&O Railroad latched onto that and had that property. My other part of my position is honoring the easements for the sewer and water lines that the town of Mount Airy already has through our property. And some of it is in the county side of the property now, which includes the ball fields and where the new school is, new elementary school. But they also have a 14-foot roadway easement for the wastewater treatment plant in Mount Airy. And I want to point out the rights of private ownership of real property is part and parcel of the Bill of Rights of the United States Constitution and its amendments. And it is very important to each and every one of you who own property, whether it's small or large, whether it's measured in feet, partial acres, 100 acres, or whatever. We all have the same rights, and the only way to keep those rights is to support and respect those rights for each other. Neal's Farm Market uses that roadway area for fall weekend straw rides and as a service road to check cattle, fences, and haul some wood out every now and then, and this like the other. And we also have options for future. Who knows what we may want to do with that property? It could be picnic areas, rent it out, I don't know. The agriculture scene is changing so much with the entertainment side of it. We don't know where we'll be. But I do want to say this. I'm not gonna, I cannot and will not and would not want to guarantee that will always remain a farm, because I don't think it will. What's happening around is gonna change that in time. But at the same time, we've got to maintain our rights with what we have to make that next step more advantageous for us. It's business. Simple as that. We had a proposed easement presented to us a couple weeks ago about the only real property rights we would have left if I honored that would be the obligation to pay the real estate taxes. So it's nothing the Nil family will be in agreement with. So I do not intend to sign that, so the answer is no. And we really do not want any other proposals to even consider right now, because I think the requirements needed to secure the grants that we will be addressing later, you will be shown, will be too restrictive on us for consideration. So I'm saying don't bother even asking anymore. In closing, I'd like to say thank you for hearing me out. And I'm glad I didn't get too emotional. Because it is emotional. I was born in that house down there. The year that Mother and Daddy bought the farm. And it might be wise for the town to think a little further ahead. And I'll get to that point. But my father, with a 7th grade education in 1940, conversed with the B&O Railroad, one of the giants of the time, and proceeded to purchase 50-some acres on the west side of 27. And since then, schools have taken, and then the county took more of it, and this, that, and the other, and that's all part. We tried to be amenable with the town and the county and the needs. And then again in 1961, he made contacts with the B&O Railroad Company and negotiated a deal to purchase 9+ acres. The 9+ acres included the easement right-of-way for the wastewater treatment plant and some of the entrances and stuff to where the present tenants courts is, and also the ground that abuts St. Andrew's church lot. Now, I think you can just imagine that 9 acres that he bought and tied into that other property and was later transferred to those pieces of property made it one heck of a lot easier to deal with the rails and trails you have. Without that, CSX might have still owned it. I see what's right here at the end of town as you look up west past the caboose. But with that 7th, 8th grade education he had the common sense to deal with a giant. It was a David and a Goliath. And I think the town is missing some opportunity to deal with it in a different way. Not expect to get it all, not expect to have it given to them. And I think there's a way to move forward. So maybe the town should take care of what's in the town limits first, and finish the rails to trails west. And it kind of reminds me of a letter to the editor that I wrote some 10 years ago. It will be 10 years in May, I think. And it seems as though wrote to the Gazette. And some things seem like they don't change. It seems like there's more worry about what's going on outside of town instead of taking care of business in town. That's just Bill Nell speaking, so don't take it personal anyway. But anyhow, I think there's something to consider. And I certainly thank you for hearing me out, and that's the position of Nils Farm Market at this time.
Thanks, Mr. Nell.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Actually, I think the mayor has a question.
Sure.
Nils, no family, thank you so much for being here. I'd also like to thank you for the right-of-way you've given the town. I think the letter you wrote to the editor about 10 years ago was maybe in regard to the survey.
It was a survey,
yeah, it
and
was
then
in
some of the
regards-
other things, yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
And I do
People's
remember.
changed and matters changed, but it seemed like it
No.
was kind of the same mindset that was in.
And in hindsight, I want to say that I was on the Growth Development Task Force that led that survey, and you were absolutely correct. There should have been a disclaimer, because we did ask a question about the Nils Farm, and I can certainly understand your position and why you would have felt that perhaps that question should have not been asked or been asked differently. And I just want to let you know, I totally agree with you. And I also totally agree with your position on property rights, because I see no critical access here that serves the good of the community. So unless there is something that you were actually receptive to, which I thought there might be, I thought I heard you say that there may be a way to do it. We certainly want to work with you, because I know at one point your property was split by 27.
Right?
And
Right.
so you've endured some hardships over the time with your properties, and we want to be sensitive to that. I think Larry has, but just want to let you know, as mayor, totally agree with everything you said. Appreciate you coming out here. I really don't see a whole lot of point in moving forward with anything, but we went with this, so I want to hear it. But based on your comments alone, if the Nils are not receptive to a right-of-way, there is no crossing at that point.
And I think respecting of other people's property, we
Yes,
had
sir.
some visiting by some surveyors, and I understand that there were some surveyors on the western side, and apparently some of the CSX people kind of raised a little bit of a fuss, so I think maybe need to stop and think about how we approach things.
We will absolutely take care of that in the future, and I want to make sure I find out what had happened, and we'll take care of it from an enforcement issue.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Well, actually, when you were just talking about the CSX side, you're talking the western side. You're not talking over on your property.
No, the
Right.
CSX could come in later.
people were surveying perhaps on your property?
Excuse
Were
me?
they surveying on your property?
They were surveying on our property
Yeah, that's
and
what I was
also
talking about.
on the
Oh,
CSX
okay.
property.
Did you see
Okay.
it go
And
west?
it all
Yeah, I
happened
knew on the
at the
west,
same
because we had,
time.
Yeah,
we've got some
so-
deals with CSX to do some surveying over there.
CSX was always done with with permission to get on their property, so.
They're very particular, and if
They are, and
some of
we
their
had to
people
do-
show up, they're gonna give you the,
We had to do right of entries
Yeah, yeah.
to get in there, so,
Yeah, so-
and we've had the MDE out there doing some work as well. But I wanted to say thank you for allowing myself and a fellow citizen to come over and talk with you.
Yeah, yeah.
And discuss the
I
options, so.
didn't mention you and Michael O'Brien's name because I didn't want to impugn against your integrity and the way you treated us. It was fine. You
Yeah.
know, you give us courtesy and everything else. You
Yeah.
just brought the papers over and explained as best you could.
Well, I have an incredible amount of respect for you and your family, so.
Thank you.
Anyway, but this does put a damper in trying to get across 27, so we're going to have to
Yeah.
discuss that, so.
As some of the programs will be explained later on, I think maybe citizens will take a little bit of a relief.
Yeah, well, maybe. I'm not even sure we should move forward with the presentation at
Well,
this point, so.
Mount Airy's kind of famous for a lot of studies. It would be a shame to have a study and not present it.
Well, with Mr. Neal's approval, I would suggest we go ahead with what could be if the Nils approve of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any other citizen comments, citizen concerns? Come on, oh, yes, did you guys bring food? Shortbread?
Yes, and an apology. Miss Dorothy Penders couldn't be with us, so you don't get the
No.
first class shortbread.
Okay.
But we brought you a second one.
Ah,
So people, except for
we always appreciate the Celtic Festival coming to town. Thank you very much.
bring a report.
And what's I guess we'll get our date for this year, right? I want to make sure I calendar that. A very fun event.
Thank you. I'm Mary Ann Elliott, and I'm the chairperson of the Mid-Maryland Celtic Festival. We will be back for our 7th year on June 16th. We usually have this in May, but we've decided that the rainy weather has been a problem. In fact, we called it the Mid-Mudland Festival. And if you could see the aerial pictures we have, one of our members every year takes a flight above to take pictures for us. It is a brown mud swamp. It's dreadful. So we're moving to June, Father's Day weekend, instead of Mother's Day weekend, so we hope you will join us. What I shared with the town council is just a summary of the highlights of last year. Other than the mud, we had a wonderful time, in the rain, of course. And just wanted to let you know just a few things we're working on this year. Our children's area is going to expand and be revamped a bit. In fact, a Mount Airy resident is our chairperson for that area. We have some exciting things going on there, so bring the kids. The kids 12 and under are free, and all of our activities in our children's area are free, so bring the kids. This isn't just an adult-only event. It's not just throwing heavy things around and drinking beer and whiskey tasting and great food,
A lot of
although
artists selling their wares
and
and
selling
great
their
Scottish
wares,
foods.
but in
and-
fact, yes.
Right.
And of course, we will have the infamous shortbread bake-off. I don't know.
And the
if
mayor
you're up-
wears a kilt.
And he wears a kilt, so if you're up for the. So if you're up for a third year in a row, we'd love to have you.
I am.
So, okay. We're already working with the chief here and our parking guy back there, Bob, snuck in to try to resolve all of the madness that goes on with the very, in and out. Because on the same day, there's also the Maya baseball games full tournament. So it's going to be a very busy time, so we're already working with them. And as our report says, we've offered our shuttle service and our parking lots that we pay for. We've offered that to them at no cost to them to help ease the traffic and parking. So soon you will start seeing some lovely posters going up in the various businesses, and we'll be out and about. And we will put our save the date cards out here. And I have been neglectful in not mentioning the part of the great team behind me is my husband, Bill. You know him. He's the kilted wonder. And this is, he does everything I ask him, and then some things that I don't ask him to do. And then Margaret Holleran, who's a Mount Airy resident, and Cindy Wolf, who's also a Mount Airy resident, who have been with our festival, Cindy, since the very, very, very beginning, and Margaret for the past couple of years. So we want you all to come on out and join us. It's a fun day, and if you have any suggestions, or if you want to volunteer to help us, we treat our volunteers very well. T-shirts, souvenirs, food
Do you have
in
to
the
be over
hall.
18 because we have students looking for
we
student
have,
learning hours?
no, we
Would you-
have,
So it can
any
be under
kind
18?
of.
That's
yep.
fantastic.
We have Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, we have Civil
So
Air
student
Patrol.
learning hours at the
Student
Celtic
learning
Festival.
hours. Mhm.
And if you wouldn't mind getting a hold of Town Hall, I believe you know the phone number, and getting a hold of perhaps Melissa or Debbie, and we can promote this on our town website. We so appreciate you bringing the hundreds and thousands of people into our town for this great event. We're so appreciative that you chose to make this your home.
We enjoy being here, and we get so many wonderful comments on the venue and the hill that you built for us so we could have our games and people can, sit on the hillside.
That was quite an undertaking, but the fire department
know,
gets more
I know.
credit for that.
Thank you for having us, and we'll see you again before June, just to give you an update, and then we'll see you
I
in
think the
June.
June idea is a good idea. I really think that'll
I
be
hope
a
so,
nice.
too.
I mean, you could still get rain, but it's not as likely as the May date.
We
Yeah.
have
Don't do
had
it like the,
5
the
out of
yard
7
sale.
years of
Yeah.
rain, so
Yeah.
we're due for some good weather.
Thank
So-
you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
thanks. Looking
Take
forward
care
to
now.
Thanks
it.
for the shortbread cookies.
Yes, thank you.
That are making their way around.
We'll get you some of the good stuff the next time.
Tell Dorothy I missed her and her shortbread cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're supposed to.
yeah, there's no reason they need to be closed.
It's a hard act to follow. I don't wear kilts.
But if you did,
But if I did. Wayne Evans, 16473 Old Frederick Road.
Wayne,
Tonight-
just 1 second. If you
Sure.
guys can push the doors back so they lock open, they don't need to be closed.
now
They
that you're leaving,
They
we'll
should,
open
yeah,
the
they
doors.
should lock open. That's good. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Wayne, you're up.
Sure, as you could see from our last speaker, we're putting the the weekends for spring and summer together with a lot of different functions. And tonight, I'm sort of representing the Lions Club, but in addition to that, the other service clubs that are in town. You all are aware that the yard sale is coming up real soon. That's a large event. That's on April 28th. And the Mount Airy Lions Club does that. And on May 5th, we have our Spring Festival. And we do those to kind of pay for the rest of the things that we do. That same day, we have the Spring Fishing Tournament at Prospect Park. And in the past years, we've had 80, 90, sometimes 100 kids out there. And we divide it up into different age groups and who catches the biggest fish and the most fish, things like that. And these functions that we do, like yard sales, help us to be able to take care of that. Now, upcoming, I get ahead of myself because I wanted to explain where the money comes to do all these things and what the different service clubs in town do. Upcoming, we have the Easter egg hunt. And the Easter egg hunt is going to be done on March 18th. We're doing that in conjunction with the fire department's breakfast that morning. Matter of fact, the Lions Club is supplying the Easter Bunny this year. But we pack, get ready for this, 10,000 eggs for that. Yes, it's an undertaking. 8,000 plastic eggs that we put candies in. And then we spread them out all over the carnival grounds so that the kids can find them. And we do this, again, in age groups, 3 and younger and 3 to 7, so on and so forth, so that everybody has a shot. Sometimes the bigger kids, it's harder to find the eggs. The little kids, we just kind of lay them in the field. So that's happening, as I said, in conjunction with the fire department's March breakfast. Now, another big thing that the Lions Club gets involved in, the Mount Airy Lions Club, is kind of the nucleus, but only the nucleus. All of the service clubs, the Rotary, the Kiwanis, the two Lions Clubs, the American Legion and the Sons of the American Legion all pool together and do the Diamond Jubilee. If you're not familiar with what that is, the Diamond Jubilee is going to be in May, and we have in our zip code 600 people of 75 years of age and over. Those are the 600 we know that are there. We're probably pretty sure that there's more like 800. And the only real database we have for that is the senior center. So if you know people that are not registered at the senior center, that are 75 and above, we put together a dinner. It's called the Diamond Jubilee. All of those people are invited. They come out for a night of entertainment and dinner. This year we're going to have the Ligonor High School Jazz Band will be the entertainment that night. And that's the 23rd at the American Legion Hall, 23rd of May, excuse me. If you know anyone, as I said, I'll say this again because we do get complaints occasionally that they didn't get the word. There's no list anywhere in Mount Airy that says you're 75 or over unless you're registered at the senior center. So you may contact any of those service organizations through their websites. If you've got some names of people who would like to attend, please have them. Please send those names to us. It's also limited. If you've ever been to any of the events there, it's only about 250 people. So if we've got 600 that are over 75, then you need to get your ticket purchases done early. We will be sending out the messages on this, the information on this next month. So that'll get out in the field. Bill? Okay. Something that we're doing in town, Meg Griffin, who is at the library. This is another event. Okay. On March 24th, Saturday afternoon, in the library, there is a volunteer seminar, I guess for lack of a better fair. And represented will be all the service clubs, some church groups, community ties, God's Kitchen will be there represented. And what they're doing is they're, spelling out for everybody different things that you can do on a volunteer basis in town. If you're new in town, if you're not new in town, but would like to get involved, I know I got a lot more involved in probably too many things after I retired. So if that's something you're looking for, that fair will give you all the information you need regarding service clubs or other service opportunities in town. Thank you, Bill. Any questions?
There's one more thing associated with that. In terms of speaking of volunteers, we have attending
that volunteer fair, a lady by the name of Barbara Norman. And Barbara is the Carroll County representative of RSVP, Senior Corps. It's a national organization. They have funding available for local groups to organize and have a connection with them. And a large purpose of that group is to help seniors who need help getting to doctor appointments, who need help getting to the store once a week or whatever. And maybe they don't have a family member who can help that in that way. It's specifically for our aging local population. Again, because of the location of Mount Airy, we're kind of at the end of the track for both Carroll County and Frederick County. It's one of the reasons we need to be more self-reliant, and over the years we have been. So we've identified this group as someone who has resources and connections that could help us establish a group of volunteers here locally who collectively, might be available and interested in helping in that way. She will be there, along with all the groups that already do volunteer activities. It makes sense for us to have some representation from the town commissions too, because that's a great way to get involved with town government on a volunteer basis.
Thank you.
Wayne, clarification, you said purchase tickets for Silver Jubilee. Is that a cost? I didn't believe it was.
No, it's,
Get your tickets.
you get your ticket.
Thank
You request the ticket.
Yeah, so the cost is
Okay.
free. I didn't hear free from anybody. The cost is free if you're over 75. A couple of years I may make it.
Sounds
But it's a
good.
great event.
Yeah, it is, if you've never been involved in that before,
I have. It's great.
and especially some of the councilmen and the mayor, if you guys would like to attend, please do.
Well, I've served, and I like serving. Bill gets to MC. I've always wanted to do that, but serving's good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. Any other citizen comments, community concerns? All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shift the agenda around just a little now, because I know we obviously have some people here for the TAP grant street crossing proposal that we were just discussing before. And so we're going to jump to that on the agenda. So Sean's going to dim the lights, fire up the projector. The engineers will stand up and tell us what's in the report that we got.
I have some opening comments to
Okay,
this.
Larry, this is your baby, Larry, you and Sean, it's a park
Okay.
project.
Hi, Lisa and Shasi. It's good to see you. So, of course, I had quite a bit written down here that I'm adapting over a little bit. But I would tell you this whole Rails to Trails thing since 2013 has been 3 steps forward, 1 step back, trip over your own feet, and just keep plugging forward and trying to get it done. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at with it now, is trying to figure out how to move forward. So prior to Sabra Wing talking tonight, I wanted to just mention a couple of things. And the main thing I want to, Bill's leaving, but Bill, you can't leave until I show you that I have this up here. So I have this up here, and I have the master plan up here. 2013 master plan talks about rails to trails and the interconnectivity of communities in Chapter 1, the goals and objectives, Chapter 6, transportation, Chapter 7, community facilities and park facilities, Chapter 8, community design guidelines. So I feel we're on solid ground in working forward on rails to trails, trying to figure out if something can be produced where we could get some state funding to help us accomplish something on rails to trails. Despite a setback in not being able to get an easement immediately on rails to trails crossing 27, I think that the Center Street corridor that we have discussed numerous times, and all of us are, we seem to run on it, on trying to figure out how to get Center Street through. Ultimately ends in a traffic light that crosses Highway 27. So I think there's still some benefit to this. We might be able to move forward on a method of getting across 27, or at least allowing for pedestrians who either are coming across from the church or other facilities or communities on the other side of the highway. I think it's still worth looking at this and continuing through with the presentation. And so with that in mind, what Sabra Wang has done at this point is put together some alternatives for getting across 27. Obviously, something will take priority after tonight, and we'll get to discuss that. This will ultimately lead to a community forum where citizens will be able to come in and openly discuss or fill out comment cards on their feelings of rails to trails overall, including heading west from Main Street and looking at those properties which we're currently looking at now. We're dealing with CSX. We're talking to CSX. We're also talking to cold storage and watching how it is developed and looking for the opportunity to extend rails trails to the west. Sabra Wang has been hired to do three things: apply for a TAP grant, create a master plan for overall rails to trails, and help us figure out how to put a TAP grant to get across 27. So there's three things that they're accomplishing. Tonight, they're talking about 27. With that, I give you Elisa and Shashi. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, for that introduction. As Larry said, my name's Elisa Mitchell. I'm a transportation engineer with Sabra Wang and Associates, and I'm also here tonight with my colleague, Sashi Patel, who's a civil engineer with Sabra Wang. So tonight, we're going to present our preliminary findings and analysis on the trails crossing for Maryland 27. But before we get into that, just want to give a little background, and this reiterates what Larry has said. We are also working on the Trails Master Plan for the town with this project. So we're using the town's comprehensive plan and other plans by Frederick and Carroll County to come up with a town-wide trails plan. We're gonna, in our trails plan, we plan to take it just a step further than what the proposed trails are out there now to highlight any sort of gaps in the network, to help connect better to the identified points of interest. And this Maryland 27 crossing is going to be a key component and a priority segment outlined in the Trails Master Plan. We are also helping the town to apply for the Transportation Alternatives Funding Program. Just to give you a little background on that, this is a federal program, but it's administered by the state. So the application goes to the State Highway Administration or Maryland Department of Transportation. The basics of the program is really to help communities improve anything transportation related to access and whatnot. And so this includes a lot of pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. This trails and the trails crossing is a good candidate for this funding program to help the town achieve this. And then lastly, here in the background, as I said, what's going to come across in our Trails Master Plan is that the rails to trails connecting that east-west spine is going to be a priority area, and then in order to create that east-west spine for the trails, this crossing at 27 is a priority area. Next slide, Sean. So then, just as we go to this presentation, I just wanted to highlight a few things we're looking for the council and even the public just to consider. Three things listed here. Any of your thoughts and to consider your positives and negatives and whatnot for the three trails crossings. The timeline of this project, specifically in reference to other projects by the towns. And lastly, the town's funding as far as construction and maintenance of the trails and this trails crossing. To set the stage a little bit, this is just a map of, as you can see, Mount Airy. There's a lot of lines on this map. Those are just the some of the proposed trails along the town. But really tonight we're focusing on this segment here. This is the 27 trails crossing, and then this is that segment of the rails to trails. And then the next slide just shows you more of an aerial view, specifically of, again, this same crossing and priority trail segment along the wastewater treatment plant road.
In which, just for clarification, half of that road is owned by the Nils. Okay.
Yes. Next slide. Just wanted to give a brief background into some of the transportation characteristics along this crossing in this segment of 27. First of all, the road is posted at a speed limit of 50 miles per hour. This segment of 27 sees 20,000 vehicles per day on average. It is currently unsignalized, however, there are stop signs on the approaches. The shoulder along 27 is signed by the state as a bike route, so we always consider connectivity when we do these types of trails. A key thing to consider here is this crossing does lie at the bottom of what we call a side curve, so that indicates that there's adequate sight distance, or as cars are approaching the trail, there is enough distance so that cars can see anyone crossing and stop in time. And then lastly, drainage and stormwater infrastructure plays a major part in our analysis, as there is a stormwater management pond in this near this intersection, as well as culverts that run underneath the roadway. So we were scoped with the town to look at 3 different alternatives. The first one, we're going to look at an at-grade crossing, so we're across the road. The second one, we're looking at a below-grade crossing, so that would be a tunnel. And through this initial analysis, we decided to look at a crossing north of Center Street and then one south of Center Street. And then lastly, we looked at an above-grade option or a pedestrian and bike bridge. So first, we're going to discuss the at-grade option. The white line on this map indicates the alignment of the trail and then the crossing across 27. Some benefits of this crossing: it provides a very direct route for the trail. Let's see. So as you can see, it would just continue along the treatment road across 27 and then connect into the rest of the Rails to Trail segment over here. Next slide. This is just a profile view of that crossing, just to orient yourselves a bit. This shows the lanes along 27, and then these are just the approaches of the trail right here. And this is just a reference you'll see when we talk about the different lengths of the different crossings. So currently, right now, at the cross section of 27, it would be around 75 feet would be the crossing. Next slide. So we understand that there's a desire and a future probability for this intersection to become signalized, and at that point, it would have full signal control, pedestrian signals, and crosswalks and whatnot to make it a very adequate, safe crossing for pedestrians and bicyclists using the trail. However, we did want to discuss a possible interim option before the signalization comes to be. And this interim option, there is precedent of this types of crossing on other state roadways, which you'll see here in pictures. So first of all, this would be a pedestrian activated beacon crossing, so essentially very similar to what you already have out here on Main Street, but instead of being on the sides, the beacons would be overhead on a mast arm, and as someone approaches it, they would press the button, the beacons would flash, indicating to the drivers that there's someone that wants to cross. And this would obviously be enhanced with crosswalks and signage and lighting and all of that. I'm showing 2 examples here. The first one on the top, this is US 219 in Deep Creek. This is an example. As you can see, the picture has the signs and the marked crosswalk. And in this location, due to sight distance, the warning beacon was placed in advance of the crosswalk. And then the second option, this is Maryland 410 at Sligo Creek. This is an example of when the beacons would be at the crossing overhead. Moving on to the next option, which is below grade to the north side of Center Street. Again, similar to the at-grade crossing, this is a very direct route for the trail. Again, the trail, and then the crossing, and then just the alignment we're showing here would just be a little bit of a boardwalk to get over some of these stormwater management issues, and then continue and cross somewhere along this Watkins Road again to connect back up to the rest of the trail. Again, this is the profile view, and what I want you to highlight, see here is really just the length of the tunnel. It'll be about 150 feet, which is this segment right here, and then this is just the grades to get down into the tunnel. But the tunnel would be about 150 feet long. Next slide. Our next alternative, same thing, same type of tunnel underneath, just much further south of the crossing. As you can see, this is a less direct route. The trail would continue a little bit along to the south of 27, cross down here where it's more feasible due to the grade of the roadway and other stormwater issues there. And then again, just connect back up to the trail. Similar to option 2A, again, this box culvert tunnel would be about 150 feet. The last alternative is the above grade option, which would be a bridge. The alignment shown here captures the distance needed to create the approach grades up to the crossing over 27. But again, it's a similar route on either side. And then lastly, again, the plan view, keep in mind, when considering the actual crossing of the road and then the approaches, this is about 750 feet long in total length. Next slide. So just to give you a brief overview of the cost, the first one is the at-grade crossing. This would be the least expensive, and the total cost would be an estimated around $1 million.
Why would it cost $1 million to put in a flashing light?
Sashi wants to elaborate on some of the items included.
You can get to that later if you want. I just keep that in mind. I'm kind of curious as to why it would be that much.
Go ahead. I would just list a few items that are
You have to
listed.
stand up and use the microphone so that.
It includes all this construction cost for like mile and almost 10th of a mile long.
Closer to the mic, sir.
Yeah, the $1 million cost include the total length of the trail, starting from the west end of the west side of 27 to all the way up to the wastewater treatment plants. And it includes the drainage,
Okay.
water management.
Oh, it's not just the crosswalk and the light.
Right.
There's a lot more in that. Okay, all right.
Yes, so as Sashi said, all these costs are include any sort of improvements to the actual priority trail segment on
But
the
something
wastewater
to
treatment
highlight
plant.
for the public, if we were to get the grant, the town's contribution would only be 20% of that.
Would be 20%. That's
very
the
important, 'cause
matching.
When our taxpayers, they know
Yeah.
we're very conservative, when they hear $1 million, they ask the
Understood.
same question that guy just
Mhm.
asked. But the towns, it'll be greatly reduced. Okay, thank you.
So the next two are the below grade option, and just, I'm sorry, there's a brief typo in here. 2A is really the one to the north, and 2B is to the south. Just reverse those two, but the tunnel to the north, the total cost would be around 3.2, and then for the tunnel to the south, a little bit more at 5.6, and lastly, the bridge at 4.3 million. And as the mayor said, we have another column here that just shows the 20% funds required by the town for the matching program.
So
Yes.
you've got those reversed. When I read through this in my chart, this made sense to me because it seemed to me that the south tunnel approach was an option because while it was out of the way, it was an easier one because of the grade. So why is the south tunnel?
When you look at
You
the
have to
south
ha- you
one,
have
you
to-
actually have paths going all the way down
Right,
both
right,
sides.
but path is cheaper than tunnel, was my thought. I mean, if
They
this,
have
this.
the same tunnel.
Like because I'd read through this before you guys got here, I saw this, and this layout made sense to me. The other one doesn't make sense to me when you tell me that those are backwards.
Yeah, the south option cost more because of the grading cost that we had to account for. And because there is a right-of-way constraint, and we will be requiring a retaining wall on both sides to get to the point,
Okay.
to get down like 10 or 12 feet below the grade.
Yes, sir. Sashi said that retaining wall does increase the cost significantly more.
Bob, you got something?
Yeah, I don't know, at the planning commission, we had a presentation from John Thompson where he was actually talking about taking the road over Center Street. I guess then it would be to the south. The south is closer towards town almost. And it was a bridge over, and it was less expensive to go up there simply because of the topography. You had hills on both sides of the highway.
Less expensive from the north to south, or these options, because it was more expensive than any of these
Well,
options.
and you would get your bridge, and you could add your rails to trails to that, but your Center Street exit from town. Remember the one that had the circles and all
I
that?
do, absolutely. I believe that was actually projected at 15 million.
Yeah, I believe that
carried
project
cars.
is a roadway
Right.
project.
Right.
Yeah, that was a roadway project to
And-
carry cars.
And that
over.
would be, and that was in conjunction with the development of the Beck property, which
Right.
given some resistance from the property owners, may be an option I'm sure Larry will start exploring, because we're supposed to have Century Drive and Center Street go through, and maybe we can cross and not have to access the Nils property. So there may be some other options.
Yeah, we do have to look at other properties and other ways to get across. It could involve the LDS church, it could involve other things. So
And
we'll have
other
to
development
discuss
that you
that.
just pointed out.
So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we have one more slide, and I realize this may be a little challenging to read, so I'll just highlight, talk through the major points here. But basically, we put together some advantages and disadvantages of the options for you. And we looked at 4 or 5 different things. We looked at construction, feasibility of the construction, the relative cost, any safety trade-offs for the different alternatives, as well as maintenance. So to start off with the construction and the impacts, I'm going to say the at-grade crossing would be the most feasible to construct, a more simple construction phasing, less impacts to traffic and whatnot, while the tunnel options would have the most impact during construction and closure of the roadway. Relative cost, we already discussed this briefly. The low-cost option would be the at-grade crossing, followed by the tunnel to the north, and then lastly the tunnel to the south, and the bridge would be the highest cost. Just to consider some safety trade-offs, yes, when you put in the tunnel or when you put in the bridge, you're separating your modes of travel, so you're eliminating your conflicts between your vehicles and your peds and your bikes, for sure, so that's a benefit there. Also keep in mind, sometimes the least direct routes, especially with bridges, and users don't always want to use a less direct route, so they may still be willing to just try to risk it and cross the roadway, even if you do the bridge or the tunnel. So there's your trade-off there. Lastly, for maintenance, the town would be responsible for maintenance of these facilities. Things with the bridge and the tunnels, there's additional maintenance there as far as lighting and removing debris and et cetera and whatnot. So that's essentially our summary of our analysis on these options for these trail crossings, and we welcome any further questions.
I do see Mr. Neal had a question.
Yeah.
Yes,
Does these appraisals take into consideration the dueling of 27, or is this the present road?
If anything would be constructed, it would be.
Can you use the mic because you are on television?
Hold it down close to you.
Yeah, these construction costs account for a future widening of 27.
Okay, so that's a very good question, Mr. Nell. So it's not
Thank you.
as it is now, it's with a wider road.
Yeah, it is.
Is that correct?
It is in consideration with the wider road.
Okay,
Fu-
good
future
clarification.
27.
Because it could really change
Yeah.
if they had a couple lanes. Good question.
Yes, it does account for it.
Shashi, could I ask a question? You mentioned that a tunnel or a bridge requires the town to perform the maintenance. What about a crossing signal? Does the town have to upkeep a yellow flashing signal as well?
Yeah, it does.
It does, okay.
The point there to make is anything like the roadway maintenance and snow removal and whatnot would be maintained as it is now.
Well, 27's not ours. So would
Right,
the
so
state-
so the state would still be doing that
Okay.
part, but
And-
any infrastructure related
So-
to the
so-
trail would be the town's
But I mean,
responsibility.
like the flashing light and everything, would that, I assume State Highway would probably have to put that in, so it would be theirs, I'm guessing.
It would be theirs, but most likely there'd be an MOU for the town to
Okay.
maintain.
Because I don't think,
Most
we don't maintain any lights currently, do we?
Not that, unless we, I
One?
don't even think we,
We're a one-light town, what can I do?
I was wondering about our yellow flashing one out here. Okay, all right.
Okay.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be a similar MOU
Yeah,
to what's out there now.
To deal with that, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Any other questions? Dick? Dick is our super commission member. He's on practically every town commission.
I'm Dick Swanson, I'm with the Water Sewer Commission. Could you elaborate a little bit about what the stormwater management issues are that you're remediating? And have you coordinated with anybody outside of the town, for example, Carroll County, in terms of their assessment of stormwater management?
We have not made an attempt yet for the stormwater management, but we did consider the cost for it.
What are you doing?
It would be a environmental site design facilities that what MD is now requiring. It will be a small facilities. It will not be large pond, it will be small ponds or small swells or
So you're just talking about grading to,
grading
yeah.
and drainage, yes.
Okay, but it would have to go through an approval process.
tunnel,
Right.
yeah,
I
for a
think
tunnel.
from what Dick's pointing out.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
no, Larry?
Well, the only thing I would add to that is that this sets the stage for a public forum, which we had, the staff had recommended a date of March 14th. And I was wondering if that was something that we could put on the calendar.
I mean, I kind of wonder, if we're putting the cart before the horse.
I
At
would
this
suggest you look at other options for crossing
Mhm.
to avoid the nils unless at some time they become more receptive.
Yeah.
And then include that into the process. And I don't think you can do that by March 14th. That's just my suggestion.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, then I'd like to meet with the staff this week and have that conversation and figure out where to go next. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All
Thanks,
right.
Heather.
Is there a time requirement that we have to comply with?
No.
Well,
Well, for the TAP grant, we
For the
would,
TAP
but-
grant, Sean, what's the date on the TAP grant? May?
The TAP grant is due May 16th.
All right, so if we're going to apply for a TAP grant, we have to have that done by May 16th, which would require Sopper Wang at least a month. If we're going to move on a TAP grant, we need to make that decision at the April council meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe you could have further conversations with Mr. Neal that if there is a potential benefit, I would explore those benefits.
I would be more than happy to talk to you anytime, Bill, about flying or farming or whatever you want to talk about.
And if there's any future benefits for a crossing there that may ultimately benefit Nils Farm.
Well, and I
And
think
it
the
has to.
town needs to think about a
Yeah.
connection down to Central Drive in the future.
Yeah,
That's on our
It's
plan.
logical.
absolutely.
And I think if the Rails to Trails umbrella covers so much viewscape and restrictions, you probably won't be able to put a road down there. And that's how restrictive some of the Rails to Trails and overlays are.
Okay, we'll definitely take a look at
So
that.
you really need to think it through, which
Yes,
is
sir.
more important.
Yes, sir.
I don't think there's a cost-benefit analysis that can be made to justify public funds of these kind of dollars to do to major tunnels and stuff, personally.
Yes, and I don't think that was the recommendation anyway, but we had to explore all options. But certainly, I would be opposed to some of those more expensive options as well.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's move on with the agenda.
Jumping back to page one.
Yeah, Jimmy, if we can get the lights.
Have we done citizen?
Sean, you know which lights are?
Still gonna do citizen comments.
You need a pro. Yeah, we finished them. We went all the way through
We didn't
them.
do citizen comments.
You mean,
No, we finished this.
we finished it, so we went all the way through that.
You went to the first agenda. Citizens
Yeah,
comments are
we had that section.
Yeah, they're over.
Yeah. Ordinance 2018-1, budget amendment, Parks and Rec, Turkey Trot. This is here for adoption.
And this is for the current year's budget?
This is the, yeah.
7,900.
7,900 that the Turkey Trot made. And I think, Sean, is this the one that's
Yeah,
for?
that's for
Yeah,
the.
that's what I
check.
thought.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, well, I know, if assuming, I will, I will move that we take it. I got a second from Scott. Any discussion on this one? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Everybody was aye, so there's no opposed, and now it's yours. Pat, this is you.
with you. She's running for district, and she had to get up and speak, and she did, so it's up to you whether you want to have her for a few minutes.
Gotcha.
Well, we talked about volunteerism earlier this evening, and again, this is just another great example of the town coming together, working together to get funds for good community events. And I'm talking tonight about our first annual Turkey Trot. It was originally, I believe, the brainchild of Amethyst Hymock when she worked for the town, and then Sean Byrne took it over and did a fantastic job. I'd like to thank Councilman Larry, who was out there and in the freezing weather helping you set up Parks and Recs. I know Councilman Scott was there as well and his family, and we all froze our butts off, but at the end result was a very nice annual Turkey Trot. It's also a great example. I'd like to thank Shaladon. While they're technically outside of our town limits, they do a lot to support the town, and many of the benefits, and the funding and stuff go right back into the town, such as with the police fundraiser, and again with this Turkey Trot. So that being said, I'm going to give a huge shout out to Shaladon. We talked about some of their events, and just so you all know, they cut all the wood on their property. They do smoked prime rib. They do some fantastic meals. They have a fantastic venue there, so I don't necessarily want to pull people away from our businesses. They do benefit the town in many ways, so please consider them as an option as well. With that being said, we are very proud we were going to ask Mount Airy Net to join us at the podium, if you could, please. Okay, Sue, on behalf, let's get out here in front of the podium. On behalf of the town of Mount Airy, Shaladon, and we are presenting you today with the proceeds, all the proceeds from the Mount Airy Turkey Trot, a check for $4,216.71 for all the work you do with Mount Airy Net.
Sweet.
Fantastic organization. Sean, thank you for making that happen. Would you like to say a few words?
Well, when Sean contacted me, we were really excited about it, especially because he said annual. That sounds wonderful. But just to, I guess right now we're going into our 25th year, so we're kind of trying to get kind of some town events going, you know, to celebrate our 25th year, and this kind of started us out. And just over the years, I guess, with I've been with the net, I guess, about 10 years, and as director for the last, this is my 4th year, and just the changes, you know, in the support from the town over the years because of it, you know, just people in and out, and you forget about it and all that. And it's really been interesting since I started, you know, just the, through the Facebook and everything, you know, be able to get out the word that we're here, and, you know, we can show a picture of our empty pantry in the summer, and food comes in, you know, just to be able to say, this is what we need right now. And yesterday we had, if you look at our Facebook page, we got 5,000 pounds from the town, you know, through the Boy Scouts. They went around and collected, and it's really, really cool. And everything that comes in comes from the town, donations and monetary and everything comes from the town. Everything goes back out to families in our town. Right now we're averaging 90 families a month coming in, just Mount Airy residents for food. And it's been really cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take one short step back. I'm told that we actually had a speaker tonight on the agenda that didn't show up here. We have a Ms. Bravo, who's running for District 4. I know if you have something quick you want to address us on, we'd love to hear from you.
And you're going to have to pronounce your first name. Neither one of
that
us
was a
wanted to
tough
try.
one. Well, that's why I gave you Bravo.
Thank you.
I could say that one.
Exactly. Hi, my name is Isela Bravo, and I live in Mount Airy, and I've been a resident here for 12 years. And as someone said earlier, Mount Airy is a wonderful town. I am running for state district. I don't want to take a lot of time. I'm running for legislation for state district, and I know I'm a little nervous right now. I have a website up. It's at bravo4md4.com. I am currently doing a listening tour, going to all the different parts of my district to get to know everybody, find out what my constituents are going to need. And I would love to hear from you. And I see an awful lot of people here that I'd love to give you my card and talk to you, because I need to know what the people are feeling here. I can make a lot of assumptions. I know from my friends, I've been PTA president, PTA treasurer, volunteered for social committees, just like most of the women in the room, I'm sure. And again, I just wanted to introduce myself and say hello and say I'd love to hear from you if you see me. Thanks.
Okay.
Do you have some cards you could leave at the back?
I do, thank you.
If you could leave your cards at the back table. I didn't realize you were actually a Mount Airy resident. We appreciate that, and we appreciate that you're stepping up to serve your community. So
Thank you very much.
We wish you luck, and please leave some cards for those that choose
I
to check
appreciate
you
it.
out.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Ordinance 2018-2, budget amendment, which is adding the highway user revenue. This one is here for adoption. This should be a no-brainer. It turned out that we're getting more highway user money than we expected, so we have to add it to the budget. Bob?
I'll make a
You
motion.
want to move it? I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, it's taking money. That's an easy one. All right, and next on the agenda. Oh, by the way, number 2 on the agenda, in case you looked, was an annexation resolution. That was not ready, so that is why we did not go into that one. It didn't meet the requirements of what we needed yet. Ordinance 2018-4, budget amendment to add $58,000 to the stormwater management project line item. This was introduced last month. It's here for adoption. I will introduce it. Is there a second?
Second.
Bob, Scott seconding, and any discussion? I think we had discussed it a bit last month. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It was unanimous. Ordinance 2018-5, amend the town code to create the Sustainable Mount Airy Commission. This is here for adoption. All right, I will second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
No, I just
Aye.
want going forward,
You
just
got
want to
it,
work
yeah.
with Jason for some of the framework and how we're going to work it, how we're going to appoint, what we're looking for. We don't want to know if we want people in or outside of town, so we'll just work out the logistics. But thank you all for taking the step towards health and fitness in the town. We're moving
Yeah,
in
that
that
makes us
direction.
a heel
It's-
city, or that gets us into some government dollars and stuff.
Well, and I think it benefits us as a community to be more
I
healthy
think
as
it is a
as
heel
well.
city
Yeah.
city through MML, is that
Yeah.
correct, Jason?
Yeah, Heel Town.
Yeah, there's things that lets us into.
So
Plus, when
congrat-
we go to the convention, we can wear an extra badge.
There's that. But thank you, Jason, for
We're now a heel
for
city.
spearheading this through.
All right. Ordinance 2018-6. This is a budget amendment to take money out of the park's capital budget for the Watkins Park ball lights, because they do not intend to do that this year. This is only here for introduction this month. I will introduce it. Got a second? Larry seconding it. We will get that one next month. Up next, basketball court. Larry?
Yeah, we do not have the MOU yet for Brittany Manor, for the developer of that at this time. We do have one bid that came in. It came in over budget, and the parks manager is working with Barney to seek other bids that will come in more within our budget. So that's where we're at on
Okay.
that one.
Thanks.
So-
Decided where the basketball court.
Yeah, we
was gonna
decided
go.
where it was going to be, and that elevated the cost on the initial bid that came in. So we're trying to figure out grading issues because that drove the cost up.
Trying to keep that cost down, save taxpayer money.
Well, and
Trying.
it'd be nice to see something like that, next time it comes to the table.
See the proposal,
Just a- yeah.
or what?
Well, no, an outline where you're gonna move it.
Oh, and that,
And I think we wanted to, I think the council last time wanted to see where it was going, because it's not been
Okay, I thought we had put that map up, but we can, we'll do that again next month.
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
All right, up next, Beards and Brats, here for discussion. I think, Scott, you had originally requested that this go on.
I
so-
did, so I would like to call Mr. Sergio up and Ms. Reed to discuss Beards and Brats, and it's just to give a prelude. It's more the topic of that type of event or activity, so they're going to elaborate on the concept of bringing something like that that is annual to the town.
Thank you. Good evening. So, Scott Sergio, 1607 Pullman Court. While I currently serve on the Planning Commission, I and Ms. Pamela Reed come to you as citizens, private citizens, proposing a new event for Main Street in the September timeframe. We're deeming it Mount Airy Oktoberfest, and it would be a traditional German event for Oktoberfest themed. We would have Bavarian food and Oktoberfest attire. It would have a themed beer tent, and we would have German folk music. It'll be very family oriented. And what we're seeking to do is get the town's approval to proceed with execution of the event in the September timeframe of this year. While we would like to pull together some of the numbers as to what the cost would be and the organizations that could help finance it, we would bring that into the April meeting and then ask if the town would possibly, if needed, leverage any costs that we may not be able to obtain from MAMSA or the Chamber of Commerce, as we are having current discussions with them. We've already started those discussions in hopes that we would get approval to proceed. But it would be a Mount Airy Main Street event, and we would offer first crack at the restaurants and vendors in town to supply the food and any of the activities. And like I said, we would bring in multiple vendors to make it very family oriented. We actually recently attended a similar Oktoberfest in a neighboring town, and we have a very good idea as to what we'd like it to look like. And so we would like to ask for consideration and approval to proceed.
So a couple things that I would like to ask just to help bring some things forward. So one, this started off with the title of Beards and Brats, but as I had discussions with you and agreed to bring this forward, can you elaborate a little bit on the difference between the two types of events?
Well, first of all, Beards and Brats, they're a for-profit third-party company that has nothing to do with the town. We're proposing this is a town event. Proceeds from the event would benefit the community as well as the merchants on Main Street and around. So.
Okay, that's a good discriminator. Now, similar events you mentioned as well that you've attended some of these things. Can you give a little bit of background or your experiences, if there's anything at this time that you can share of how it's worked in other towns?
So Lovettsville Oktoberfest is what we attended last year. It was very well done, very traditional to a true German Oktoberfest. First and foremost, I thought they put more time into creating a family environment as opposed to just a drunk beer fest. And that's kind of what we'd like to create. So.
Very good.
Yeah. I mean, they had a huge children's activity area. You know, everything was free. A huge beer tent where people could just relax and listen to live music. Lots of costumes floating around. So.
You may not know this, but when we did a demographic study of the town of Mount Airy, do you know what the largest demographic is? Nationality? It's German. I think it's only around 15%, but it is German. So the largest demographic in Mount Airy is German. Very pro, but I actually had a small German group that I put together running for election. I noticed all these Germans that didn't know each other, so we got them all together and we did our own little Oktoberfest. Also, I was so happy to hear you say that you're going to make sure that you include
Absolutely.
the downtown merchants. We actually have a new form, and I see Ashley back there, for downtown events to make sure we work together very closely with the downtown merchants and give them first crack before we bring in any outside vendors.
They would have first priority.
and that's
And
excellent.
We've already started speaking to the Chamber of Commerce and MAMSA. MAMSA today actually, where I initially thought this could be a true town event, even funded by the town, MAMSA wants a crack at this. They want to kind of.
Well, there is some benefit in the councils. We did, under the arts funding line, we did donate, I think it was either 1,000 or a couple thousand to Beers and Brats, with the hope that some of that funding, well, there is some, benefits to bringing businesses or bringing people into town to see this business. But we had also, there was a charity, and we had hoped to see something come back from that. I'm not sure that worked out last year, but I'm sure it'll work out better this year if it did last. Yes.
In looking at the numbers, that the projection of attendees from past town events, we would envision there actually being, for those entities that would front the cost, we would see an increase above that in revenue that was generated, and they would be able to, again, town projects, you would be able to put it towards that. MAMSA could go, if they had any intentions with their funds, and the chamber was speaking about scholarships. So this could fund, a lot of good things in the
Well,
town.
I know during the event, you all had mentioned some ways to increase, maybe lower cost to
Yeah.
increase
So I
money that
actually
would come back to the
suggest,
community.
$25 for a 5.5 ounce
As opposed to
unlimited
40?
tasting, as opposed to 40 and not limited to just 10.
Yeah, so
And
you
they're
saw some room
5.5.
for improvement.
But
Right.
that unlimited is a problem. I mean, at least at Beards,
Is it
at
for-
least
is
at-
it for you,
at least-
Peter?
But at least at Beards,
For me, it's not.
but in theory, at Beards and Brats, there was, it was, to be honest, it was too expensive to get drunk there.
Right, but it's
I mean,
also
because
too
people said, I
expensive
said,
for
no,
families.
the problem, there were people going elsewhere and drinking, and there was a little bit of an issue with that, but the price was too high because you were limited to 10. But unlimited would,
Well,
we'd have
so
to even
keep in
check the,
mind, it is a small, I mean, we can.
But you can
figure
keep
all that
filling
out
it up.
later. But you can keep filling it up.
Yeah.
It's also while supplies last. I mean, you don't have an unlimited amount of beer.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, it doesn't matter how much you charge. If somebody's coming to get drunk, they're gonna get drunk.
They're gonna need it, and
regardless.
But
you're
I-
not getting a big glass.
But I also
Right.
think a couple things. One, so, and I want to bounce around. So one, experience is something I want you to touch on for a second of doing something like this. Two would be the clarification of the request, which is essentially right now, I believe what they're asking for this body is to do the research necessary of creating their proposal coming forward for doing this type of event. So in April, it would be, yes, if this commission agree, or this council agrees, you guys would pull it all together, come back in April and say, here's what our plan is. Does the town want to move forward with it or not? So it's kind of a green light on whether to do it or not.
I would actually seek your approval tonight and then
Okay.
come back in April if it turns out we need finances from you.
Now,
We're going through a lot of discussions now in other areas about whether it's a town event or not a town event.
yeah.
So are we talking a town event that, this,
So originally that was the idea, but now that MAMSA and Chamber has come forward, I think we might turn it into more of a MAMSA.
That's
Which would
that's
make
good.
it a town
That's
event.
good,
Yeah,
but that, because
I mean,
It's
that's,
still a town, it still would be called Mount Airy Oktoberfest.
Yeah, that's still
but-
town.
But
But if
MAMSA's
we were to
involved.
come up financially short, and I have a feeling that we're not going to, then we would come back and seek some help if we need it.
yeah, that's good, because kind of the discussion has been, and having met with MAMSA and our staff to work with MAMSA, the idea is to make MAMSA the clearinghouse
Right.
for downtown events. You want to do a downtown event, that's why the town set up the Main Street Association. You go to them, you work through them, and because we do fund them, and we provide them with staff, actually. So that's the way to do it, is to do it through MAMSA.
MAMSA, Ellie loves the idea. We're speaking again tomorrow, and we're meeting next week to actually kind of go through the proposal that I've put together, and make sure that we're both on the same page. And then I think she's ready to pull the trigger.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can really work the numbers in the next month. We just wanted to know if the council was willing to have this on Main Street in the September time.
As a replacement to the Beers and Brats
yeah,
that they've
Beers-
already
Beers-
allowed.
Beards and Brats has made it clear that they are intending to go again this year.
no.
No,
Yes, they- oh,
actually,
yeah. Ashley?
what's the latest?
I do know that they've been reached out
So they've indicated they want to come back
Okay.
again.
Because the
I-
message
I would-
that
I would
heard
have
was
some-
they weren't, but that's fine.
Staff,
It can change.
staff contacted them, and
But this would be, I
it's
think.
it's a month
this-
different. It's a
this
different
ev-
event.
It's a different event. It's not
This
meeting
event
at the
is-
same time or to replace it.
Yes.
This was not to replace the event.
Yeah.
It so happened that that event would be, as we understood it, be leaving town. But if, I think there may be room for both, if that should be the case.
I think they sound like very different events
This is
to
a
me.
very different event.
Well, and if there is some pushback, I personally would go for the event that benefited the town the most. Because there is some pushback along
Versus a
merchants of
for-profit.
shutting Main Street down too often. And if you have two events, I can tell you, they're going to be at my door. And I'm going to go for the event, and I'm going to encourage the town council to go for the event that's going to benefit the town more.
Yeah, I would agree with what the mayor said. I would be a lot more willing to entertain your event coordinated with MAMSA as opposed to a Beards, Beers and Brats that, basically provides money to a commercial source, so.
I think just hearing the idea verbally, it's hard, I guess, for us to kind of picture some of the negatives that might be lurking. I think if we had some literature on what you've done so far, what you're looking forward to doing, even just coming to propose an idea, I think is good, kind of get us thinking a little bit about it, but just having some literature so that we could do a little bit of research as well and see where you guys have stand and what you're looking forward to, I think would help also prove your point about trying to make this work as well.
Maybe if you can pull up some from Lovettstown that I think you are trying to mimic somewhat. There's nothing wrong with mimicking.
I think if we just asked if there's a consensus on the council to discuss this further. I mean, is this something that you would consider, is that what you're looking for?
That's what we were seeking.
Yeah, I think,
If
Yeah.
we were gonna
Yeah, I get-
outright say no, then they would walk away.
yeah, I don't think
what they're
anybody's
looking for is
anybody's saying that.
a consensus from us to come back and convince us.
Just your buy-in to proceed
Yeah.
with with a proposal. We have,
I put a proposal together. It was very brief, just some research that I did. I thought I sent it to everyone. I guess, did you not?
I
get
did
it?
not get anything.
Okay, I'll re-forward it.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing I would throw in there is that, one time in the fall, I can see a road closure. I would be reluctant to close the road twice in the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, we used to actually do it 2 days.
I get that, but
We used to do it
Yeah,
on
Larry
Saturday.
and I have been at some of the
Yeah.
meetings, and
yeah,
Yeah.
part of
Once
once
in
in
the
the spring,
it's a tougher
once in the
fight
fall,
this-
that's about all I'm good for.
part of the inspiration to create this event was, one, we thought it was a good idea, but two, we were under the impression that the Beards, and Brats was not going to
so was I.
occur. And if that was the case, the town seemed as though it would miss it. I worked
I agree.
the door in the ticketing for that event, and I saw a lot of new faces from not only our town, but surrounding towns.
No,
And
I
so
agree.
I think the town would like to have this event.
Oh, and I love the theme. It's an
Well, here's-
Oktoberfest theme.
I,
It's
yeah,
more theme.
I agree too. Here's, and I would tell you just for me, because I'm not a big beer drinker, okay? But I really liked coming to Beards and Brats because I like getting to try 10
Food?
really odd, 10 really odd stuff. I mean, like I tasted a Belgian sour. Do you have a Belgian sour? Don't waste your time. But, but I had a
For those
chocolate-
that like it, Peter.
But I had a cherry stout. I was like, wow, this is good. And I had a really great cider that these guys had. So for me, that was the whole thing, that they were like, I think what they have, 27, each brought like 2 beers. So it was like 50, we got a chance to sip, a little cup of 10. That to me was the thing. Whereas when we have the beer tent, where we just have like, 2 different kinds of beer, I don't even really
No,
waste.
we were thinking more grand. Yeah.
Okay, good. That's good. That's what I'm telling you, because I like that idea. That was interest to me.
I picture this as a very grand event. You have to do it right the first time to get people to come back the second, third, and fourth time, and for it to grow. So there would be no corners cut.
Okay, good. I like to hear that. I'm throwing out my 2 cents, and we have the little beer garden back there. Yeah, I might get a beer, probably not. It's not that big a deal. But if I can really taste some real
I'm
different
fine
and
with the
unusual
consensus.
things, I like
So-
that.
Well, Scott is our official consensus taker.
I am. And so that said, I think I've already heard 3 people
Yeah.
that said that they don't have a problem. I'll ask from the other side of the table, though.
I didn't say I had a problem. I would just like to
Yeah,
see
see
what
what's
you
going
guys
on.
have done and just some info.
We look forward to hearing what you're gonna come up with.
So it sounds like you guys have the go with as far as people want more info.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, reduction in bonding, Twin Arch
Thanks,
Business
Scott and Pam.
Park. Thanks.
Thank you.
The developers requesting release of the remaining bonding, which was a little over 1.1 million. Town staff has recommended we release $909,605.50. I will move we release as recommended.
What do they have left? I don't mind seconding, but I just want to know what they have left.
Let me refer to the worksheet.
Okay.
Sanitary sewer system. Looks
So
like.
they'll have their stormwater management for almost 340,000, landscaping for 32.5, forest conservation for 16.3, and then the remaining 10% of 163,000.
So if I add up that math, 1.2 and 900, so you're asking for more to be released than what they still owe?
Those items have been inspected to be compliance, to be complete. So
You're looking at me funny, but if you add up the numbers of the 900,000 she just quoted off, plus the 340, plus the 35, plus the 16, you end up getting over 1.2, so I was just curious.
Is Scott doing numbers again?
Unfortunately, I
No,
am.
their release requested was 1.1.
Yep.
Their balance on hand is 1.7. It's almost
Oh,
1.8.
okay. So we'll still have a large amount reserved?
Yes.
That's fine.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'll say, my perspective is always is if the town staff recommends it, and the guy who's doing it isn't here saying he really needs more.
You always ask.
Yep,
Never
no.
hurts.
All right, set a date for the budget workshop. So Mr. Mayor, when do you think you'll have a budget ready?
Well, it's me.
Well, I'm just asking, I mean, that's a good place to start. Until the budget's ready, we might as well not have a workshop, so.
Council gets at the council meeting in April.
Okay.
So after April.
All right, that
we'll
means
set
I
it.
gotta get on the ball and review
So
everybody's
we
budget.
should, so we should set a date in April for a budget.
Hold on. April's fine. March, April.
Yeah.
I have a little distraction this next month or so, but yeah, I think we can make it happen.
Debbie's got
April, it
something.
has to be introduced. I don't care what stage it's at. May, and if we're gonna adopt it, because I've gotta get my advertising done.
Well, that was the plan. The public hearing would be May, right? Before the May meeting.
Do the same schedule we've always done
Okay.
and keep it as far out as we
So-
can.
so-
Put it as far out as we can, okay?
So we're gonna pick dates at the April meeting, which is April 2nd?
That's what it sounds like.
That sounds great.
All right,
Moving on.
But I'm gonna put it on for introduction in April.
yes,
Is that all right?
yes, definitely. Make sure you have it to us in time, or I'm gonna have her strike it from the agenda. You know, I'm getting tough with that these days.
Good.
All right, okay, budget public hearing, that will be May 7th, okay? Public hearing on the budget, May 7th?
That's, May 7th is, no, you're right, May 7th. Thinking April 7th.
Okay. Yeah, May 6th, because that's the last possible moment we can actually have that meeting, so that's why I'm doing it.
Are you
May
sure?
7th, what time?
Are you sure?
Are you really sure?
We can discuss the exact time at the April meeting, depending upon what the budget looks like. We think we need more time. Council reports, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'm going to defer my formal report. I'll probably put it out later. I'm going to move straight into commission recommendations. I'm recommending Pam Reed and Elmer Bailey be appointed to the Economic Development Commission. I am further recommending that Carl Munder be appointed to Water and Sewer, and Dwight Mullinex, but keep in mind that Carl Munder will step down from Streets and Roads. I need to, wait one second on Elmer. Did you all receive an application for Elmer?
I didn't see anything.
Okay, I'm
I
gonna,
heard,
Yeah, I have it upstairs.
You have it upstairs. So town staff.
would
received
you
it.
like me to defer it, Scott?
No.
You okay? Okay.
You can go for it.
Okay, if Scott's
Mr. Mayor,
Okay, so
your
I'll
nomination.
stay with my recommendation for Pam and Elmer for the Economic Development Commission.
I'll
Talk
move we
with you a little
accept
bit about
the
that.
recommendations.
I will second.
Did you get through Dwight
Yeah,
Mullinex for
Dwight
beautification?
Mullinex also.
Okay.
And then he backtracked to removing Carl from
Carl's moving from
streets.
one to
He's coming
another.
off the streets.
Yep.
He wants to go where the excitement is on water and sewer.
I know.
That's my recommendation.
And I understand, I'll say this right out front, I understand that there used to be some problems with Elmer. Elmer has cleaned up his act. I hasn't let.
Well, don't look at me, Elmer's a great citizen.
We didn't say anything about having a problem with Elmer.
Okay. 'Cause
I heard nomination from the mayor.
This is.
Okay,
He is
well-
he is a fine, upstanding.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that was unanimous. All right, beautification, parks and rec, Larry?
All right, I did miss the beautification meeting, but Tina was kind enough to send me an email. The Beautification Commission is already working on parks and getting ready for the spring. We cleaned up Wildwood Point and prune shrubs in Vest Pocket and Wildwood Parks. This week, they're going to be working on Windy Ridge Park tomorrow at 2:30, if anyone's interested. They're going to be removing those sleeves from the trees in Windy Ridge Park. We are discussing plans with a wood craftsman to design a bench for a new bee and butterfly pollinator garden project at Windy Ridge Park.
Would they be familiar with wood, like caboose quality wood?
I'm not sure who they're talking to. I don't think it's Doc, though. The March 19th beautification meeting is being canceled, and the next meeting will be on April 17th at 7 p.m. On the park side, Bill has been making the rounds. I'll put Bill Butts on the spot. Along with Lindy Brown and the Planning Commission. Roxanne's back there too. This is a document put together by the Planning Commission that kind of talks about the master plan and goals and objectives in it. So we've taken a look at that, and I'm kind of showing it to the chairman of the commissions so that they can see what's in the 2013 plan for us to try to carry through. So I'll be including that in reports in the future, the things that we're doing that relate to the master plan. Skate park, the Parks Board is meeting on March 15th, and we're inviting citizens who are interested in the skate park to show up and give us input because the skate park is falling apart and we need to do something about it. We need a plan to move forward with either fixing the park or deciding how that property is going to be used in the future. So again, March 15th at 7 p.m. here in Town Hall. We met to discuss the exercise equipment, met with Pam Reed, Mark was there as well. And it was a site visit out at Watkins Park to see where we could put the exercise equipment that's already been purchased and sitting there over in the storage area. We're meeting again tomorrow in Watkins Park at 10 a.m. With Sean's coming, I think Brian Johnson's coming, to finalize the location in Watkins Park for the exercise equipment. We've been working on budget priorities, field allocation, still discussing an inclusive playground, which is something that's popular with all the Parks Board members. And the chili cook-off is April 7th.
Yes.
So that'll be a downtown event, very
Always fun.
exciting.
Is there
Got
going to
about
be any afterburner chili?
not this year.
No afterburner, come on, Larry.
The Rotary Club of Mount Airy is doing the cooking under my ICS number, so I'm not sure how that'll be, but I'm sure it'll be good. So got about 17 cooks signed up for the red chili, and then we have numerous salsa and green chili signed
And
up.
I told there's a lot of the restaurants.
Restaurants
signed up
are-
for the restaurant
That's
chili.
one thing that's been pushed this year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is Ellie and
Jeff,
Jeff over at Conchetta's are running a restaurant, and I mean, he's gone with the whole 217-717.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Apparently a lot of restaurants are ending chili.
So it should be
I
a
will
lot
be
of chili
judging
this
that
year.
competition, so.
that's the
Free
big
meals
thing.
will be accepted when I visit your establishment. I can be,
All right, Parks and Rec, March 15th.
Roxanne?
That document that has come from the planning and zoning was actually put together by Heather.
Yes.
Not planning and zoning. Just want to make sure Heather Smith spent a lot of time putting that together and
Good job,
presenting it to
Heather.
us.
So,
Our interest is in facilitating
Facilitating it.
dissemination of it.
okay.
So there's agreement among
Thanks, Larry. EDC planning, Bob?
Thank you, Larry, for that one thing. Now I don't have to talk about that. And one other thing that I want everybody to know, on March the 20th of this year, Councilman Hushour will be inducted into the Mount Airy Hall of Fame. That's a Wednesday night, I think. And
Tuesday, I believe.
Tuesday
Yeah,
night.
so.
And that's Mount Airy Historical Society runs that Hall of Fame, and
Pete's not
Larry
here
will be
tonight.
a grand inductee.
Thank you.
Let's see, EDC, our last meeting was February the 28th. EDC, MAMSA, and the Greater Mount Airy Chamber of Commerce are attending each other's monthly meetings with the goal of a little bit of solidarity, a little bit of information exchange, and discussing events and future policy. Chili Cook-Off will be happening on Saturday, April the 7th, 2018, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Main Street will be closed at 6 o'clock so that the cooks can get set up and begin cooking. And Ellie and Jeff will be running a huge restaurant category this year. That's the big new news. Mount Airy is also going to be hosting a restaurant week in May. EDC or Melissa and Ashley are putting together a restaurant week. I think it's the 3rd to the 13th, but I'm not going to say that because I'm not real sure. The dates, I couldn't find the dates anywhere. Let's see, Farmers Market will be coming to the rail yard on Wednesday evenings, beginning May the 16th through September the 26th.
Nils, you all also host a farmer's market year-round, right? Or you have your own farmer's market over there on the farm, don't you?
Yeah, 6 days a week during the summer.
During the summer, farmer's market at the Nils. Let's promote them too.
Yeah. Let's see, Farmers Market, each year it's bigger and better, and Alice promises us a huge farmers market this year. Next meeting is on Wednesday, March the 28th.
You know, Bob, along the farmer's market in the Nils, I've been facing some health challenges. I've realized the value more and more of buying locally, and I hope that you all will look into buying locally and the value that you get from buying locally. And more people are moving that way. They're moving to more plant-based, so there's a lot of value when we have the resource of our own farmer's market and Nils Farm. And before, again, I just became more aware of it, and I hope others in the community do as well and frequent our farmers markets.
Yep. Okay, the Planning Commission, we had our meeting on Monday, February the 26th. Lindy Brown was reelected to the chair, and Leslie Dickinson was retained as vice chair for another year. Downtown Master Plan kickoff was held on the 1st of March. Is that right? 1st of March? Thursday. And I think that is the 1st of March.
It was actually the 27th, I'm sorry, which is close.
Okay, well,
Yep.
it was held
That
last
first
week.
Yeah.
Meetings for the public are currently being scheduled. Make sure to attend and have your voice heard about your vision of the future of the Mount Airy downtown. Okay, this is the perfect way to do it. Watch for those meetings and go. Let's see. The next meeting will be on Monday, March the 26th at 7 o'clock at Town Hall. The MML Frederick chapter was canceled due to conflict. The hearings on the HUR got moved to the 22nd. So Jake sort of shut down any meetings that were happening that night and asked people to show up at Annapolis and have your voice heard there. So there was no MML meeting last month. That's it. That's all I got.
All righty, Sanitation, Recycling, and Sustainable Maryland Certification Task
Oh,
Force.
thank you
That's a
very much.
mouthful.
Instead of talking trash. We did not have
Talking trash sounds better, I gotta say.
We did not have a recycling and sanitation meeting last month. Our next meeting is March 21st, 7 p.m. at Town Hall. And due to the latest wind damage from this past weekend, the Recycling and Sanitation Commission has scheduled an emergency yard waste pickup, and that date is set for March 17th. Please have all of your bags to the curb by 6 a.m. The Sustainable Mount Airy Commission met this past month to discuss some upcoming and future projects and to discuss budget expenses to meet next year's goal and attain Sustainable Mount Airy or Maryland once again. The next meeting is scheduled for April 18th at 7 p.m. at Town Hall. And just 2 dates to remember. April 28th is bulk pick trash pickup day, and May 19th is shredding and battery recycle event at Watkins Park, 9 to 12. The bulk trash pickup is 2 items on your curb, please.
Okay, what was that date again?
April 28th?
Same day as the yard sale, so if you
Correct.
don't sell anything,
If you don't
drag
sell
to
it,
the
bring
curb.
it on down.
Got it.
And
I like it.
there's also, I believe that same day, there's electronic pickup at the Boy Scouts do it every year, at the American Legion. So that,
Get rid of
your
trash day.
computers, TVs.
Yeah, old computers,
old
TVs.
computers and TVs that they, you can't hardly get a.
the big old
Can't give
projector.
away.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, bulk trash day is the 28th, it's got to be out by what time?
6 a.m.
6 a.m.
Okay, so.
Everything is
so-
6 a.m.
So,
Before
so,
the yard sale.
so it's before the yard, that's what I'm thinking, it's before the yard sale, so that doesn't.
That's
yard-
all right.
Yeah, but
You
you
just
don't
know
throw
you're not
away,
gonna
then you
sell
can
it at the
sell at
yard
the
sale.
yard sale, okay.
Yep.
All right, is that it?
That's it.
All right, streets and roads, Scott?
So streets and roads, we ended up having our meeting on the 22nd February, talked about a number of things. One of the things that we ended up discussing under the new business, which would be something the council would want to hear about, was discussing the no parking signs that were brought forward for consideration for Greg's driving school. After deliberation, the commission ended up commenting, saying that they would like to see forthcoming any types of requests be similar in nature to how a request will come for planning, so that there's enough information to make a decision. They felt that there was not enough information that was provided, i.e. drawings, why the person wanted to do it, et cetera. It was just kind of, hey, we want to cover the signs, period. So they said that they do not have enough information to end up making a decision and therefore will not give a recommendation. And going forward, if that same type of a request comes through without information, they will give the same response.
Okay, that's a good idea, because streets and roads, when it was initially thought of, the idea was it was going to be kind of like a mini planning for just the streets and road section, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and so I think they're looking to craft up some verbiage of criteria that would be necessary for things to come in, for them to say, okay, there's enough here, or they're gonna have to push it back. So if a street closure comes in, we have forms right now that fill out, here's the duration, here's who's doing it, why they're doing it. You may want to attach a site diagram to say, hey, here's the place of where it's going to be closed, blah, blah, blah. The next meeting for Streets and Roads will be the 26th of April at 7:30 at Town Hall. That concludes my report.
I just want to clarify, we're drawing parallels before planning. Streets and roads is still advisory, where planning actually is not so much advisory. So
No, but the idea is they would pass on a
It's
recommendation to
fine.
planning, but they wanted to deal with that.
Right, they're just
from a-
saying they
No,
would
that's
not
fine.
provide a recommendation.
I
It
just-
doesn't mean that this body would be taking that recommendation
I
as
just wanted to clarify advisory.
understood.
All right, water and sewer, we got snowed out last month. Our next meeting will be Wednesday here at 7. Be there, okay. Monica?
Yes, okay, staff is discussing with the mayor transition plans for some long-term employees that are scheduled to retire within the next 3 to 15 months. We started.
Debbie, you pushing off, you told me.
She pushed it off a little bit.
Yeah,
Just a
she
little.
said she'd
Just
stay in a little longer.
Just a little bit. We started preliminary field engineering studies for our long-term stormwater management pond in Frederick County to meet our MDE requirements. So you might see some people walking around Windy Ridge Park, because that's the area that they're going to be looking at. Just a little bit more information on the downtown master plan. We're forming a steering committee, which will be approximately 14 people, and that's in the process of being formed right now. It's a combination of staff, public safety officials, commission chairs, and downtown business owners. That steering committee will be working with our consultants for close to 8 months, probably until the fall. There's also going to be a stakeholder involvement, which includes special interest groups that need to be involved at some level in the study, like the schools, the fire company, et cetera. Staff will be providing town documents that provide important background information for our consultants, so that's in the process of being transmitted to them right now. The other thing I have is, just because it's going to be spring and summer soon, if you have a four-wheeler or a boat or a trailer, please don't park it on the street, because if you do, you're going to get a fine or a warning.
Nice.
Just make sure it's parked on your driveway. We run into that a lot in the spring and the summer. That's it.
And Monica, specifically on the steering committee, there's been some advocates for the preservation of the Flatiron Building, and certainly I think we all are advocates of that, depending on how it works out. And I have asked for some members that have been more vocal to be on that steering committee to make sure the Flatiron Building is fully
Right,
represented.
and we, I believe Mike Echo from the Historical Society is gonna
And
serve
also
on.
Mr. Bill Chapman, I've asked that he be
Mr.
included.
Chapman and also probably Pete Ballas also.
Fine.
on the
Okay,
steering committee.
that's a good section.
I just want to make sure everybody's represented. And
Right.
At some point, we may be opening the Flatiron Building as an open house so the citizens can actually see the inside of the Flatiron Building and see what it's all about. I was actually surprised when I opened the door and went in there, could barely turn around how small it is. I think citizens need to see it when we make a decision. Thank you.
Sounds good. Tom?
Over the last month, I've been working on the, and looking at the annexation petition that was on the agenda tonight and then pulled, and whether it meets the legal requirements. Also, wanted to let you all know that hearing's been scheduled on our motion to have the court order us as owner of the Marydale Stormwater Management Facility on March 14, so hopefully on or about that date, I'll have an order in hand and granting the town ownership of that stormwater management facility so that we can improve it. And that's it.
All right. I will move that we go into a closed meeting, and when that closed meeting ends, that we be automatically adjourned, and the purpose of the closed meeting is consider acquisition of real estate and to obtain legal counsel. I'm making the motion. Do I have a second? Got a sec? No, we
It's not
don't
on
have to
here.
do that. It's not,
No?
we've
on?
streamlined the agenda. We didn't need it, so we
Good,
pulled
good.
it.
Hey, you know what? I asked.
There's a couple things on here that if you look closely, we've
I was
we've
like, wait a
pulled.
minute, Peter always says.
Yeah, I
recommend
know,
the
we've
bills
done
be
that
paid.
forever. Okay, and Bob seconded. So Helt, aye, King, aye, Fourier, aye, Strong,
Aye.
Hushhour, everybody's an aye,
Larry,
okay.
just